All right. Hi, everyone. What's up? It's yours truly, Daniel Brimo, live from Nerdspace Creative Hub, Kaduna's first niche co-working space for creatives. With me, I have the privilege of having with me Mr. Olujimi Akintunde. I hope I said that right. Mr. Oluwajimi
Yeah.
Akintunde, the Chief Technical Officer, CTO of a venture capital firm based here in Kaduna State called the Scath Companies. I've been looking forward to having this sit down for the longest time, but he's a very tough individual to catch. He's very busy. I get a little busy every now and then. So, Mr. Jimmy Akintunde, thank you so much for being on the Nerdspace podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you. I'm excited. How you doing? How you feeling?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah? I'm feeling the drip. I'm feeling the drip. Earlier I was just telling you that I like the hoodie.
Yeah.
That is official TSC merch. Yes.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like it. Nice. TSC they have style. You know, they're cool people. All right. Without much ado, we're just gonna jump right into it. You're the chief technical officer of a venture capitalist firm in the heart of Northern Nigeria. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and what is it about the way you've been socialized and the way your upbringing? What is it about that has led you to this position, working in VC and as a CTO? Tell us a little bit about your background and how it has contributed to your current position.
Okay. All right. Cool. So backgrounds. Funny enough, I wrote a book through the lens of my background. So I usually have people, when people ask me questions like that, I have them say, go and buy my book.
You're a writer?
I just do a lot of things. So yeah, I published it a while ago. It's called,
so you're published?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's called
Fun fact.
Yeah, it's called The Climb to the Third Floor. So it's kind of like a journey through my eyes to that. But in summary, my background would be humble beginnings, grew up in the North, mixed family, when it comes to culture, religion, and everything. Studied in FGC, so that kind of helped with culture also. Federal Government College Kaduna.
Shout out to FGC. FGC alumni, by the way. I actually have a lot of respect for people who graduated from FGC because the school is famous to have produced a lot of successful people. One of whom I'm also going to be sitting down and I'll be having a conversation with him. So
then went on to university in ABU, studied chemical engineering. So I'm an engineer. A lot of people also don't know that.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then did my MSc in HSC Paris on innovation and business entrepreneurship. So yeah, I think when it comes to educational background, that's basically married, currently a dad of somebody that keeps scattering my whole house and giving background sounds in my meetings these days. But it's quite interesting. I think everything our mission is built up for is towards their generation, and all the things we missed out on in our generation is why we try to do what we do now. So yeah, those are basically what my background is about. That's
quite interesting. I like it that you mentioned that the things that we missed out, growing up, and are some of the reasons why we are in the space that we are, because I can relate to that. It's actually, the reason why I ventured into setting up a creative space, because I always wanted to exist in one, and that didn't exist. There was none available. So I decided to build up my own space. But tell me something, why VC and why Kaduna State?
Okay, so I'll say why Kaduna State, then I'll say why VC.
Okay.
Why? Because I think why VC is quite elaborate when it comes to like historical side. But why Kaduna State is, for me, I look at things from emerging and underrepresented or underserved regions. I feel like these are regions that have potential and are easily overlooked. So whenever there's a possibility or an avenue to harness potential or talent from this region, I always want to kind of do those nitty-gritty jobs, and hence why we set up in Kaduna at the moment. Scope-wise, we focus on other underrepresented and underserved regions, and not just in Nigeria, also when it comes to sub-Saharan Africa. So yeah. So for us, it's just a case of if a region we feel has potential and is underserved, underrepresented, or we want to have boots on the ground there.
True underdog story.
Yeah. And then when it comes to why VC, I feel like the world is built on VC. A lot of people don't understand it. So when we say VC, we say venture capitalist or venture capital. When I say the world is being built on VC, we could use stories from like the Medici era, Da Vinci discovering gunpowder, mapping out how to fly, a whole lot of other stuff. Everything we have today is built on venture capital back. How is that? So the Medici family funded Da Vinci's exploits by funding him. He took out all those researches, experiments, and then we have results today. So hence everything you think of comes from the venture capital angle. If you look at it from a sport perspective, there's VC in sports. You incubate, you find a player, you develop, you fund him, he goes on to be successful, you have residual equities from that. You can look at it from a creative angle also.
Okay.
EME founded Wizkid. Wizkid is a global superstar. They have royalties, incubation, identification. You can look at it from an arts or a tech sector. So it's more pronounced in tech sector just because it's one of the most convenient areas to use it. But basically everything runs on VC.
Interesting.
So I feel like if you're going to identify, incubate, and scale talent or potential in underserved regions, then VC is the way to go about it.
Interesting. In that regard, what sectors are you biggest on? Like, what sectors are your top, say, 3-4 sectors? And can you tell me why you have chosen to prioritize said sectors?
Okay. So when we started, we've always been sector agnostic. It's a term in the venture capital space. It means we don't have a primary focus sector. So we're not saying we're backing fintech, we're backing edutech, we're backing health tech. For anything that comes at us, if it's innovative potential, can create impact and has high growth potential, we're willing to look at it. So we've always been sector agnostic. Most recently, we broaden our scope to other verticals. So now we do VC investment from a creative angle, from an art angle, from a sport angle, and from a tech angle. So we're currently focused on 4 sectors when it comes to investing in VC.
Okay, interesting. Approach. So a couple of things stood out for me there. You said innovative, impactful, and growth. So scale, something that is a venture that is scalable, that can scale. That's interesting. So what is your assessment or measure of what counts as innovative to you? Because you know a lot of these words are often thrown around these days. And as a VC firm, I assume that you would have certain criteria, standards for what you consider as innovative, and then impactful. So when you say impact, the first thing that comes at me is some sort of social impact, some sort of, I'm thinking of a social dimension, social change. Impact is a keyword for NGOs. So could you please just tell me a little bit more about what are your standards, or how do you identify, or how do you identify a venture as innovative, and what qualifies a venture as impactful?
Okay, so I think with innovation, it's a case of there's nothing really new under the sun, but there's also a case of how you're doing things from a different angle and different approach. So when we look at stuff, it could be that you're building the next fintech app. What unique selling point does it have? What makes it different from the remaining peers? If it has that element, then it's going to be innovative. So it can now stand out from the peer and be a game changer. So it's just a case of what is that unique selling point that your product has, or is it ahead of its time, or does it have like elements that haven't really been that people aren't really familiar with at the moment. So yeah, I think those are how we quantify innovation.
Okay.
I could give an example of an innovative startup that we saw of recent that usually, so when we were vetting for our startup entries of recent, I think a couple of my team members flagged the startup as fail, because we run it as a democratic process.
Okay.
Where everybody has their input, because I feel like it's users on a grand scale that will use a product, so it should always have that open-ended review. So everybody flagged it as no, and then I looked at it later and I was like, oh, okay, this is actually interesting. Why did you guys flag it as no? So it was similar to Twitter, but you take Twitter and you make it open-ended. Twitter is an open-ended platform for conversations, yeah?
Yes.
But now they wanted it to be, their platform is built around DMs, but open-ended.
What do you mean open-ended?
Your DMs are read by other people.
Okay.
So he's smiling already, and he's thinking of all the problem and chaos it will cause. So yeah,
okay.
And when I saw that, I was like, this has a different feel
to
it.
Fully public, open platform.
Yeah, and then
interesting.
When I now raised it to the team, and I'm like, this has an angle. So you can look at it from Big Brother when they're doing all their ships, and imagine how people would be glued reading a housemate that are currently doing ship, even if this conversation might be staged, but they feel like they're in the DM and they will be glued to that conversation. So now this is like, and then somebody was like, okay, what happens if Twitter just goes on to add it? And I'm like, it's not something that it's easily added to Twitter on a large scale, because in Twitter's privacy policy, when you joined, you had to, certain things are private. So even if they were going to add it, they will add it as a subscription where you could choose to opt into that.
Paid
but
service.
These people are launching it on that scale. So that means you're agreeing to it from the get-go, so you could onboard a lot.
So you know what you're getting yourself into.
So it looked quite interesting. It looked disruptive, and it had an innovative touch. Hence, when I say nothing is really new, but you could always add
your approach. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. For those, because Jimmy is like, you're like super cool. A lot of people, some people out there might have gone right over their heads when you said ships. What he meant by ships is relationships. If you're a Gen Z, I'm sure that didn't go right over your head. But if you're like Generation X, I'm not sure if if you're Generation X or you're a boomer. Or
boomers have missed it.
Completely. That went right over their heads. If you're a boomer or Generation X, or even a lot of millennials, some millennials could have missed that as well. And we're going to be making some of these references. And once every now and then, I would have to clarify the ones that I don't go right over my head, because sometimes I live under a rock. Anyway, so interesting. I wanted to ask you about your team, and you're like my neighbor, and I'm very observant. And I noticed, that you have family, in your team, and I wanted to know, like, what's that like? Because I personally, I know it's important, to have a support system in anything that you're doing. Having a support system is very important, especially in these climes, and with the economy and the devaluation and the inflation, all of that, and just having a support system. So tell me, what is it like? And could you please shed a little bit more light on your team and the people on your team that you are related to, and what's that like? Because I'm jealous, because I assume that's nice to have. Having family working closely with you, and believing in the same visions. And so how does that work? I mean, how do you manage conflicts? How do you manage that dynamic? And what's that like, hearing from you?
Okay, so shedding light on my team would be, we're a youthful bunch. I'm always open to working with younger people. Why? Because I feel like at every point in time where you were the youngest person, you had like very unorthodox ideas. And I feel like unorthodox ideas have a way of shaping a whole lot of things. So I work with young people. I'm not the biggest on certification, but I'm the biggest on value. So when you go to our career page, there's something that reads, we'd rather have you as a dropout that gets the job done to 90% than have you as a first class graduate that gets the job done to 50%.
Interesting. I find that interesting, because that mentality is a generational shift. That is, in the Nigerian setting, we prioritize certificates and certifications and pieces of paper, and that's why we have, in my opinion, that's why a lot of things are not right with unfortunately, it breaks my heart to admit, but a lot of things could be better in the country. But because we have focused on certifications and politics and, and some nepotism, we pick people who are good on paper, but practically in real life, they are not up to the task and they can't deliver as well as other people who have passion and who are driven. So it's very interesting, and I really admire the fact that you prioritize drive and aptitude for learning and passion over that's a deviation from the norm in the Nigerian setting. So
because I've seen people send us NYSC corpus, which means they have certification, they got into 11, they can't compose an email, they send a full-blown email in a subject header, and I can relate. So that's how it is for my team. So I work with various classes of people. You have to have this degree to come and work here, because we feel like there's a whole general orientation. You get to understand our vision, mission, and then you see how you integrate with the team. So that's basically when it comes to my team size. We keep a lean team. We are never beyond, I think, 10 at every point in time, because everybody has like certain designations and roles to always fill in. We always open up internship slots just so we get fresh perspectives every quarter. So we take at least a minimum of 3 interns every quarter. And I'm big on paying people for value. So even if you're an intern, you get paid when you work with us and all of that.
Do you guys hear that? At TSC, interns actually get paid, and they take interns every quarter. So if you're out there and you want to have experience working in the VC space, perhaps you want to pay attention and keep track of TSC. Right.
So then when it comes to working with my family, I don't really see so there can't be conflict when it comes to working, because I'm very, very, I don't know, the word would be maybe meticulous or professional when it comes to working with me. Down to everybody that works with TSC has like employment contracts, employment offers. You have to accept it. You have to like fit a certain level of criteria. So be it I work with my sister, I work with my wife, everybody has those contracts. We have a way that we quantify performances every month. We have what we call scorecard. There's queries and all of that. So you could be my sister, my wife, you could get issued a query, you could have low performance scorecards, you get your pay slash and a whole lot of that. And just to make it a lot simple, I think I don't have conversations with any of my, if we were to have a conversation on WhatsApp with the team, or maybe a secondary medium of conversation. So I think my family members don't send me conversations personally on WhatsApp. So we know that when I mean my family members I work with, because that's like a business platform for me. So
you're saying they don't have personal conversations with you over the business platform?
Over WhatsApp. That's over like WhatsApp. So we use iMessenger. So I could have just send my so the head of programs, my sister, I could have just sent her, this isn't done right and all of that, and then on iMessenger there's a GIF that we're laughing about next thing.
That is so cool.
So but that means that everything is separate, and when the job is done wrong, the job is done wrong, you're getting penalized across board. There's contracts to revisit, you have your equity split. So there's nothing like, it's not a family business, even if families work on it. It's more like a business.
To a strict business structure, and you compartmentalize your relationship, according to, I mean, when it's business, and I like that. That's actually quite interesting because, personally, I'm new in, the founder space. I'm like the newest, most unorthodox, rough around the edges founder in Kaduna State. So for me, and just to highlight that, everybody that I have on this series are people that I actually in real life admire. And I'm having these conversations with people like you and individuals like you, because I feel like as someone who is newer in the founder space, in the entrepreneurs circle, there's a lot of things that I could learn. And I have to say, from this place and from what I've seen so far, I actually admire the way that you have been able to have, to structure your organization. I give you points for that. But most importantly, I think it's interesting that you are able to manage your relationship, your work relationship, and your out of work relationship with family. And that's something I feel like a lot of people could take a cue from, could learn from, could take notes from. And because it's difficult to manage those relationships across, you know, the family sentiment, between business and the family sentiment. You know, sometimes people get carried away. And so, yeah, that's interesting. That's something that I feel like I would be picking your brain more, you know, eventually, to just learn a thing or two from you. So tell me something. VC firm, you invest in innovative, impactful, and high growth potential firms. Where do you get the money from? Are you funded, or have you been bootstrapping, or are you washing money? Are you, you know, are you like one of these NGOs that are that are cleaning money? How do you do it?
All right, so we are bootstrapped for the most part. I used to be a founder. I built about 4 startups prior to now. I built my first startup when I was in university. It was a merchandise startup. I built it with friends. I think that was my first realization when it comes to building businesses and making sure that it's well structured and well documented. Because we built it we were hungry one day. We said we needed a name. We didn't have a name. We went to Iran. We just said we call it Unknown. We ended up being quite successful. We did a couple of jobs. It was good numbers, and we were about to round up, and we were going to go separate ways. And there came a conflict of, okay, how does this go? How does this go? We wanted to kind of pull capital together. It was a problem, and it weighed on our friendship for that part. So since then, I always do stuff by the book and legally binding.
So you guys were like, were you guys like the boy band that split up, and then you, like maybe one of the lead singers, went off to release your own solo album?
So So that's
interesting.
So I built that, and I've always seen problems around, and I feel like people need to come to emerging regions or build out of that region, because there's so much potential. There's so much mediums to make money. So after that, my next startup I built was something in the real estate space, connected students to apartment easily without having to walk around with agents, and covered about 25 states. I built something similar to Uber when there wasn't Uber and Bolt in Kaduna. That was drivers. So I built about 4 startups, and I think I had some success along the lines, and I was able to get a chunk of funds, and then I just decided to turn that chunk of funds into supporting others, because to date, if you look at my notepad, there's so many ideas of stuff I want to build, but I know that I'm not as youthful as I used to be like 8 years ago or so. So I don't have that.
It's interesting that you say that. You're not like 50. You know, you say
I want to retire. I've always wanted to retire earlier.
You say you're not as beautiful like you're 50, but you know, that's actually quite interesting. You know, that you're ambitious like that and you want to retire early. But I want to know, like, where are all these firms, these startups, where are they now? There's a popular series that Oprah does. Where are they now? So where are they now?
Also, all of them are actually existing. Some of them we absorb them as our venture studio startups. But they all have different teams. Some of them have been absorbed by other cooperatives, so they have like new execs to them. So some of them had like buyouts. So yeah, basically across those startups, that's how we were able to raise funds, and we decided to use the funds to invest in other people as well as other ideas that I have. So what I do now is I have like a whole lot of ideas. Sometimes I have an idea, and then I'll be waiting for our accelerator to open to see who's going to submit something similar. And I'm like, okay, see, this is this. Okay, let's support him. So he goes to build it. I could just either offer speed to market, guidance, funding, and it's still me achieving those ideas, but through other people. So basically,
that's quite interesting. I noticed a keyword, something that stood out for me from what you just said, is accelerator.
Yeah.
So over here at Nerdspace, we are going to be rolling out an incubator program. So it's interesting that we're in the same building and we're on this level. We're on the first floor and you're on the third floor, and we are like trying to roll out an incubator program, and you have an accelerator program. So would it be would it be okay if we were to incubate a startup and then push them upstairs to the next level, and then you could accelerate Is that something that you would be interested in doing?
Yeah, so basically, those are what we've been establishing with hubs recent across this region and other regions. I think of recent, we signed about 3 deal flow agreements. I think one with CAD ICT, one with NISS, some people from Kano, and a couple other hubs. We send out deal flows generally because if you have a startup and you identify them and they are good enough, you introduce them to us, we would most likely accelerate them or connect them with other VC players that could raise larger check size for them, and then you still get an equity position in that startup. So it's a case of I identified and I didn't just get caught out along the value chain.
So yeah, you're like the agent who facilitated the deal.
Yeah, so
and then you get your agency fee,
and you keep getting your agency.
Is it your agency fee or is it your agency or your agent equity? Because a fee is a one-off.
No, it's an equity. So it's always called equity fee. So it's a case of in that startup, you own an equity in the startup because when we invest, we take equity because we do equity finance. So out of that equity, you have equity. So as soon as they go on to scale, you still have like a residual of that.
Interesting. All right. So how long have you been in the VC space? I'm curious because I moved into the building last year. So, and I met you guys in the building, and I want to know how long you guys have been in the VC space, because I mean, it's important for me to know that because it gives me an idea of your years of experience operating in the VC space. So, how long have you been in the VC space? And to further expand on that, I want you to tell me, in the time that you've been operating in the VC space, what has been some of your biggest challenges and how have you been able to surmount these challenges from the perspective of an entrepreneur, especially over the last 2 years with the Naira being devalued and we have inflation currently at I think about 33% inflation. How have you been able to weather the storm? What challenges have you what are your biggest challenges and how have you been able to surmount these challenges?
Okay, all right, cool. So VC space would be 4 to 5 years to date. Like I said, I was building stuffs prior to now. I was always good at advising people on. So the history of how we came into VC space was actually an accident. It wasn't like, we prepared to go into VC space. Prior to now, people come and say, I had this idea. What do you think? Then I'll talk for a long 1 hour, 2 hours, and then the person goes on to he goes on to succeed in the idea. And we don't get anything. And then at the point, I was like, nah, I'm not talking again for free. So I started something called advisory. So you come, then I'll bill you hourly or however, and whatever.
Well, hold on. Can we just pause for a second? People pay you to speak?
Oh, yeah. We have an advisory feature currently, yeah.
Okay, so and so it's like a consultancy, like an advice. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you go on our website, you see advisory. I think an hour is 100K. If we go on to do stuff like development and management for you, it's different fees. So basically that's what that was at that time. And then I had the startups I had built. So I had startups and I was doing advisory, and then I still wanted to build more stuffs. I was still thinking of how I was going to do that. I wanted to get a space because I was always working out remotely or out of home. But I always wanted my space to be functional, where my space could generate money for me. So those were like 3 things that I had planned. And then COVID happened. I was indoors. I stumbled on a profile, went to another profile, and then I stumbled on someone. I think her name was Maya. She runs Ingressive Cap.
Yeah. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Maya from Ingressive?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
We currently have a deal flow partnership with her where our startups get introduced to their startups for more funding.
Interesting.
So
Hogan Maya.
Yeah, Maya. So I ran into her and I was like, I was reading through her profile. I was like, this is what we do now. We advise. We have startups. When you have startups, you call them portfolio people. We advise, so we could say advisory. I wanted a space. Okay, she didn't have anything to do with that, and I was like, okay, I wanted a space, a co-working space, so I could bring everything together and say we run that's why it's tagged. We call it a hybrid venture capital firm because we don't just do funding as a conventional VC would do, funding and advisory. We also provide infrastructural support with the space. Bridge the knowledge gap by tech trainings. So we kind of have like a four-part system. Hence, bringing it together and I'm ties us to a hybrid venture capital firm. So now you're getting the whole package from either you're learning or you're looking for a partner to work with or somebody to build with, to a space where you could work out of, to the advisory you would need, and then the funding. So it's kind of a holistic package as one. So that's how we came into the venture capital space. I think that was the first question, yeah?
Yes.
The second one was the challenges, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay.
The challenges. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you have faced over the period of time that you've been operating, and how have you been able to surmount these challenges? Especially, I'm highlighting the current devalued economy. The currency is not doing great right now, and we're in double-digit inflation. So, how are you managing?
So you see that inflation thing it hits us different. Why? Because of how we operate here, and because of investor interest that we have to kind of satisfy for us to raise funding, we have to declare our financials in US dollars, USD. So everything we do at the end of the year, we convert it to, every month we convert to dollars, and we pile up to know what our...
Why?
Because an investor wants to invest in something stable. An investor doesn't want to give you money now and then hear that you declared your profits and your profit is positive, but then it's now a case that when they convert it, it's close to nothing. So they want to work with fixed currencies.
So I beg your pardon. So you say investors, and you declaring you having to, declare and do your financials and revert everything to USD, to a stable currency, because the naira is not stable. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So is this mainly because your investors are outside the country, or
not necessarily? It just makes, when they look at your books, it's a lot simpler. So you don't want to look at somebody's book and see this year 150, next year 300, next year 450 million, and then you're looking at what it is in US dollar, and then 450 million is the same as 100 million as last year, and it's like, oh, I can't invest in this. So it just makes you also know what you need to achieve in real time.
Right. That makes sense.
So it's been crazy because last year, the year before, which was 2022,
yes,
we did some huge numbers in USD. If we convert, as at 2023, I think the dollar went up somewhere like 200, a change of 200 or so. I think it was, about 400. I think it went from 400 to about 800 as at the end of last year. So we did double last year. We did times 2 what we did in 2022.
Yeah.
But when we converted, it was still higher, but it was it wasn't a lot.
The margin was, so it seemed like there was not a lot of growth between 2022.
So imagine we did growth of about 250 in naira, but when we converted to USD, it was a growth of like 30%. Do you understand? You understand that? So it's cool though, because it's growth nonetheless.
Yeah.
But then it now means we have to work more.
Extra hard.
We have to work like 4 times harder to do. So now this year it's so crazy. Like when we are having our annual monthly meetings, I'm like, last year we were working because there's a time we use that work as if there's a lion chasing you, bringing leads, all of that stuff. I said this year you have to work like there's a dragon chasing you, because a lion is not going to cut it this year. Because this year,
now you literally
just by what 1006 is
breathing, you literally have a dragon breathing fire up your bum, because that makes a lot of sense.
Just by, because it's 1006 currently, and I know the value because we pay in USD. We also pay our staffs. We pay everybody in USD. So it's crazy when you're looking at somebody's salary looking at somebody's salary that's supposed to be 80K, because as at the beginning of the year when you pegged it, it was 900, and now it's 16, and that 80K has become 140K, and it's like, yo, this is so much money living the spreadsheet and stuff. And then you're now looking at your end of the year and you're like, you have to do like times 5 for it to even be profitable. So it's crazy, but nonetheless, we keep pushing, we keep innovating around new strategies and mediums in order to keep generating revenues.
So what are you most actively working on right now, and what should we be expecting from the Scath companies in the short to mid-term?
Okay. So currently we are working on raising our first fund, hence why it's been good that we were declaring our books always in a stable currency for this past year. So our first fund is a $10 million fund. We're actively talking with some interested LPs and family offices in Europe and a couple of places to kind of back the fund. Because what that means is that we can write bigger check sizes for startups. We can invest in more startups as to having to use the funds of our bootstrap fund. Because I think with our bootstrap fund, we have deployed as much capital as we have of that fund. Yeah. Coming to this new fund, it allows us to do a lot more over the next couple of years. At least if we were writing $50,000 check sizes, that should allow us to be able to write close to 200 of that amount of checks for startups, if I'm not mistaken, 50, 10, 500, yeah. So if we were to raise that fund in completion, it will allow us to invest in as much as 200 startups. There's a theory in VC that you could invest in 200 startups and 190 go on to fail. 10 go on to be successful, and that 10 gives you a good enough MYC that covers that loss and gives you excess.
I beg your pardon.
Excess
Did you say MOIC?
Yeah, it's called multiple uninvested capital.
Multiple, because we're learning here. So multiple
uninvested capital.
On MUIC. MO.
Multiple uninvested.
Okay, uninvested capital. Yeah. This is a masterclass in venture capitalism. This is venture capitalism 101. Perhaps you should float a series. I think you've actually been putting out some content that has been putting out some of these terms, some of these VC terms, to just familiarize the layman with some of these terms, which I think is interesting. So in the short to midterm, perhaps between now and the end of the year, and possibly through the first quarter of next year, what should we expect from the Scath companies?
So we want to make sure that most of our verticals take shape. I mentioned the verticals earlier: sport, arts, creative, and tech. Tech is good. We just want to invest in more startups of the fund. The creative vertical has started taking shape. We backed an initiative that is trying to restructure how entertainment in certain regions are done and kind of inspire the next generation to do better, because we feel like that opens up the creative box a lot better. We have an incubator coming in line with that, as well as a hub. I think we have active conversation with certain partners, I think yourselves included, just to see how that whole vertical comes full cycle, from building a community to having a space for them with resource support to incubating them to scale, because we have like a couple global partnerships we are working on to help with scaling this creative. With the sport, something similar, where we're working on the pipeline, looking at setting up or backing a team or whatnot. So yeah, just making sure that all our verticals take shape, and like I said, being able to identify, incubate, and scale talent across these 4 verticals, which is sport, art, tech, and the creative sector. Interesting.
Even though arts, creative intersect, sports, creative, tech.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are like your key. These are like the sectors that your focus, that your spotlight is on: sports, art, and creative. So that's to go out to anybody who has any innovative, impactful, high growth potential ideas in these sectors. You have a VC firm right here in Kaduna State, the heart of Northern Nigeria, that is ready to incubate and accelerate said initiative. I think we need to get the word out more for people to, really get their thinking hats on and get creative, get innovative, or get active. Play some sports. Go play some sports, people. I mean, it's good for your health, and you can make some money off playing sports. All right, so it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I look at people that work in the tech space, and I look at executives of firms, and I often wonder like what their playful side is. What do they do for fun? What do you do for fun? What do you do? How do you unwind? I was curious to know if you play video games. Do you have any video games on your phone? Do you play Candy Crush?
Man, Candy Crush is not for me. I find that game so hard. I don't even just relate to it. It goes beyond, because I look at stuff most likely because of how I am in tech from back end. I feel like, to me, I felt that I was just matching 4 boxes and all. Then I got to see some levels, and I'm like, how is this thing going to match it? I don't have that energy.
I don't have that energy.
I don't have that energy. So I don't play games on my phone, but I play console games. I'm a big game. I'm not a big gamer. I'm a more of a recreational gamer these days. When I was younger, I used to be a big gamer. Then I don't sleep nights out. Just playing games. But now FIFA, Metal Gear Solid, a couple of serious games that we try and catch up on. Snake. So we do that, and I think that's why our interest also aligns with different sectors. Because of recent, we currently are backing an esports company, that incubate gaming talent. I think with the creative vertical that we have, we use it also. We have some things called like experiences. They have some things called experiences where there's like a gaming section with prizes. So you use it to aggregate talents that are really good in those gaming sections so they can join like the roster for the esports company, because esports is currently over a $5 billion industry.
And a lot of people in these climes have no clue that, people are actually, making money streaming their gaming off of Twitch, off of platforms, and just streaming and just in esports.
And just contesting, because I think the current FIFA tournament that happened in Nigeria, which is the FIFA tournament, had a $15,000 pool prize, and somebody just won it. One of the top 3 gamers is a 19-year-old kid. He's gone on to win over more than 20 million naira across different sectors. He's currently going to represent Nigeria in Saudi Arabia and all, just playing FIFA.
That is wild. I think we need to get the word out more. You can actually make money from playing video games. We live in a different world, in a different time, where you can actually monetize the time that you spend playing video games if you're that good. Growing up, we're having a conversation earlier, and I was trying to share with you how I used to play. It was like a thing in my household. I grew up in a household with 2 boys, and I was the youngest. And I became very competitive. We used to play Tekken, and we play, Tekken, and it's a fighting game. So we just used to bury it all out in Tekken. We would not physically fight. We would go play Tekken, and we just bury it all out there. We got so big and so engrossed in the game that we started to make a name for ourselves around the city. So there's communities that are built around games, around gaming, and that's something that we could actually build on and monetize. So we became a big part of the beat 'em up community here in KD, the Tekken playing community here in KD, and we would often have people come over to our house, or would visit other people and go play at their houses. It got so big that people actually started traveling across cities to come play, because people were looking for competition. People were looking, they were looking to flex their skills. So they were constantly, there's people out there who are constantly looking for competition. But at the time, we weren't big on playing online. And so people actually travel to play other people. But now we live in a time when the internet has really made it easy to play people from anywhere. And that is something I feel like more people in this part of the world need to get into, and need to really, because we have talented people here as well. So that's interesting. That I didn't even know those numbers. 20 million playing games, 19 years. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that.
It's a very lucrative venture, and I think our investment in that sector is more infrastructural based, because like I mentioned, of the community in the creative space that kind of identifies this talent, they were able to identify one talent. He's kind of the best when it comes. Nobody has beaten him in all editions they've had for that creative initiative, which is the URP gaming section that happens in
party. URP stands for Urban Rave Party. I know that one.
So I think the founders of the URP, when we financed them, we told them we need to have some elements along the line, because it's kind of holistic for us. So I think the current champion in Street Fighter, he's like 3 times unbeaten. He entered into, they played the Street Fighter Global Tournament last year. He qualified from Kaduna through us, because he qualified from Kaduna. He was to represent this northern region in Lagos. But I think what happened was a flight mix-up and all of that.
That's so unfortunate.
And then he kind of missed out. And then also we've noticed that there's been times where there are contests and then just maybe internet lag and a whole lot. So we're trying to.
That's so unfortunate.
We're trying to
because we don't have enough representation.
Yeah.
You know, especially people from the north don't have enough representation in the entertainment space. So that's just unfortunate. But I hope that through some of these initiatives that you're supporting, you're able to bridge the gap and able to spotlight talent that exists in this part of the country. You know, so you don't have any games on your phone.
No. I just want to see. I want to support somebody that goes to win $1 million of gaming. The game he missed was a $1 million pool prize. Not him. He was going to represent. If he had won, he would have represented Nigeria. Okay. Somebody from I think Morocco won in Street Fighter $1 million pool prize.
Interesting.
Fortnite is about $3 million. So there's so much money in different sectors that you don't even know about that we are trying to highlight.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah, what a time
to be alive. Anyways, it's been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you. A lot of takeaways, just everything that you're into, the accelerator programs, and I wish you the best with expanding your fund.
Yeah.
Right. I wish you the best expanding that, and I personally I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for TSC because I feel that, as somebody who is invested in the creative space in Kaduna State, in Northern Nigeria, I think it's very important that we support one another and we root for one another, because with what you're doing, it means if I'm able to key into some of these initiatives, I have a good chance of attracting some funding to Nerdspace, to my outfit. And that's a conversation that we haven't had yet. And I'm looking forward to having that conversation. But this sit down was long overdue. I'm happy that we finally got a chance to have this conversation. It's an absolute pleasure having you. And I look forward to keeping track of everything that you're working on. And hopefully we can have this conversation sometime in the midterm, in let's say 6 to 9 months from now, and let's see what your books are saying. If you've been able to work hard enough, if that dragon actually ate you up.
Dragon, we're gonna slay that dragon.
Exactly. So, man, Oluwajimi Akintunde, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the Nerdspace podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And I wish you the best.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Yeah.